Dennis Porter, a tender 7-year-old boy, found himself at the heart of a heart-wrenching tragedy that altered the course of his life forever. On that fateful day, an unimaginable catastrophe struck, leaving his mother gravely injured. Despite her valiant efforts to protect him, the injuries proved fatal, and in a moment of excruciating sorrow, young Dennis was left to face the world alone. As despair threatened to engulf him, a miraculous turn of events was about to unfold. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Before we dive deeper into this extraordinary tale, I humbly request your support. If this story moves you, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more compelling and heartfelt narratives like this one. Your support is deeply appreciated. Now, let's continue with the story. The night had fallen, cloaking the world in darkness as torrents of rain poured from the heavens. Despite the dreary weather, Dennis and his mother, Allison, were making their way home. "Come on, darling," Allison encouraged with a voice full of warmth and reassurance. "I've left your favorite meal warming in the oven. We'll have a cozy dinner together when we get back." With these comforting words, she gently secured Dennis into his car seat. This comforting routine was a daily ritual for them. Dennis would often drift off to sleep during the drive, lulled by the rhythmic hum of the car. Their home was in the quaint town of Griffin, but Allison's job required her to commute to Atlanta, where the company's headquarters were situated. To ensure she could always be near her son, she had enrolled him in a local school close to her office. This arrangement allowed her to stay connected with Dennis throughout the day, ready to respond to any emergencies with the loving care that only a mother could provide. Dennis and Allison Porter shared a bond that was as profound as it was inseparable. With no other family members to lean on, their lives revolved entirely around one another. Their daily drives home were usually a serene experience, a time for quiet moments and gentle conversation. However, on this particular night, the weather had turned tumultuous. The rain pounded down in relentless sheets, and the rumbling of passing cargo trucks pierced the air with unsettling noise. Though Dennis was initially startled by the commotion, everything seemed to be manageable. Little did they know, their tranquility was about to be shattered. Allison, ever the vigilant and loving mother, drove with the utmost care while her son slept peacefully in the back seat. The storm outside did nothing to diminish her focus, but fate had other plans. As she navigated the slick roads, a reckless truck driver sped up beside them, attempting a dangerous overtaking maneuver. In an instant, disaster struck as the truck collided violently with the side of Allison's car. The impact was catastrophic. The vehicle was thrust off the road, spinning uncontrollably before flipping end over end. In the chaotic aftermath, Allison, dazed and terrified, struggled to assess the situation. The twisted wreckage of the car and the contorted position of the seats obstructed her view of Dennis. Panic gripped her heart as she called out in a desperate attempt to reassure her son. "Stay calm, sweetheart. It's all right. We're going to be okay," she said with a trembling voice, trying to soothe both her fear and Dennis's growing anxiety. Her words reached him through the haze of fear, and Dennis, though frightened, managed to respond with a shaky confirmation that he was safe in his car seat. Tears welled up in his eyes, but his fear was so overwhelming that he couldn't bring himself to cry. The wait for help seemed eternal. It took about 30 agonizing minutes before rescuers arrived at the scene. Ironically, it was the truck driver who had caused the accident who had called for assistance, a small solace amidst the overwhelming chaos and heartache of that fateful night. The truck driver, overwhelmed by the dire circumstances, explained that he had been rushing home to celebrate his young daughter's birthday. The relentless downpour had severely impaired his vision, leading to the catastrophic accident. The irony was bitter. While he had desperately tried to make it home for his daughter's special day, he ended up at the police station, his celebration plans shattered. Meanwhile, Allison and Dennis were rushed to the hospital by ambulance. It was only during the medical examination that the severity of the situation truly began to unfold. While Dennis was subjected to a thorough examination, the medical team found no immediate cause for alarm with him. However, Allison's condition was gravely concerning. The adrenaline and worry for her son had masked the seriousness of her injuries, but the doctors discovered a severe internal hemorrhage that necessitated urgent surgery. As the medical team moved swiftly around her, Dennis felt a profound sense of disorientation and helplessness. In an attempt to comfort the bewildered boy, Dr. Kevin, a recently graduated resident, approached him. "Hey kiddo, how about we go get something to eat?" he suggested with a warm smile. As he guided Dennis away from the chaos, he learned that the boy's father was unknown to him, a fact that only deepened the young boy's sense of isolation. Dr. Kevin offered Dennis a sandwich and an ice cream, trying to provide a small measure of comfort. Yet, amidst the meager relief, Dennis's anxious concern persisted. "Sir, is Mommy going to be okay?" he asked with a tremor in his voice. Dr. Kevin, though well-meaning, had never faced such a heart-wrenching situation before. His training had taught him to avoid making promises he couldn't keep. "Listen, kid, I'm confident that my colleagues are doing everything they can for your mom. But for now, try not to worry too much, okay? Soon you'll be back home," he reassured gently. Kevin stayed by Dennis's side, offering quiet support as the boy eventually succumbed to exhaustion and drifted off to sleep. Later, another doctor approached with urgent news. Allison, still undergoing surgery, had regained consciousness and was asking to see her son. Dr. Kevin, anticipating the emotional intensity of the moment, gently woke Dennis and guided him to his mother's side. There, in the sterile, white-lit confines of the hospital room, Allison, frail but determined, asked Dennis to come closer. With a voice full of the love and wisdom of a mother, she made him promise to always live with honesty and kindness, just as he had been throughout their time together. In those final moments, Allison held her son close with a mix of poignant tenderness and sorrowful resolve. Her voice, though weak, carried the weight of her undying love and her fervent hope for his future. "My dear Dennis," she whispered through tears, "you must be stronger than you have ever been before, for your life is about to change in ways you cannot yet imagine. Know that I love you more than words can express, and I will always be with you in spirit." As she embraced him for what would be the last time, tears streamed down her face, marking the end of a cherished chapter in their lives. That night, Allison passed away, leaving Dennis to navigate a world that now felt profoundly empty and cold. With no remaining family or parental figure, social services intervened, and Dennis was reluctantly placed in an orphanage. The transition was excruciatingly difficult for him. The comforting stability of his recent life, a home filled with his mother's unconditional love and a familiar, reassuring routine, had been abruptly stripped away. The funeral that followed was simple and understated, attended only by Kevin and a few colleagues from Allison's workplace, a stark contrast to the vibrant life that had once been. Standing by his mother's grave, Dennis made a tearful promise, his voice trembling with emotion. "I will always come to visit you, Mom. I will never forget your last words or the incredible person you were to me." The boy's grief was raw and palpable. The first nights at the orphanage were a harsh adjustment. The serene comfort he once knew, his last peaceful sleep in the car, was replaced by a disorienting new reality. Waking up to the car overturned, with his mother's urgent voice calling his name, left him in a state of haunting disarray. Nights were particularly difficult for Dennis. The darkness brought a flood of vivid, wrenching memories. In his dreams, he often saw Allison walking through the orphanage door to take him home, and upon waking, he would be enveloped in the lingering warmth of those dreams, only to be starkly confronted by his new, cold reality. As he struggled to adapt, he grew increasingly isolated, retreating into himself and interacting minimally with the other children. The once bright light of his life had dimmed, leaving him to grapple with the weight of his loss in a world that felt impossibly alien. As Dennis settled into his new life at the orphanage, he quickly became the target of relentless teasing and cruel taunts from the other children. "Hey Dennis, are you still thinking about your mom's ghost?" They mocked. "Maybe it's time to stop being a crybaby. She's gone and isn't coming back, so you'd better get used to it. No one will want to adopt a whiny little kid like you." The harshness of their words was amplified by the lack of intervention from the orphanage staff, who seemed indifferent to the bullying. It was as if they allowed the harsh social dynamics to unfold naturally, leaving Dennis isolated and vulnerable. The mornings at the orphanage were a small respite from the bleakness of Dennis's new reality. The children were taken to a nearby park where there were toys and spaces for playing. This routine was meant to offer a glimmer of joy and a chance for the children to interact with one another in a less confined setting. However, for Dennis, these park outings became a poignant reminder of his separation from his mother. The park, though designed for recreation, was situated close to the cemetery where his mother lay buried. This proximity to the place where he had last seen her was both a painful reminder and a beacon of solace. As the other children played and interacted with one another, Dennis felt a deep, unsettling pull towards the cemetery. The playground, with its swings and slides, seemed to blur into the background as his thoughts were fixated on his promise to his mother. He knew this was a rare chance to visit her, as leaving the orphanage freely was a luxury he did not possess. Summoning every ounce of determination he had left, Dennis discreetly slipped away from the group, hoping to make his way to the graveyard before anyone noticed his absence. Upon arriving at the cemetery, Dennis was greeted by the silence of the gravestones and the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind. The starkness of the cemetery contrasted sharply with the playful noise of the park he had just left behind. He approached his mother's grave with a mixture of trepidation and resolve. The cold, hard ground beneath him felt both grounding and unforgiving. He sank to the ground beside her tombstone, his small frame huddled in a ball of grief and yearning. With a heavy heart and tears streaming down his face, Dennis began to speak to his mother as if she were there beside him. His voice trembled as he recounted the torment he had endured since her passing. "Mom, it's so hard here," he began, his words carrying the weight of his sorrow. "The other kids don't understand me. They make fun of me for missing you. It's like they think I should just forget you and move on, but I can't. I don't know how to." The pain in his voice was palpable as he spoke of his loneliness and his struggle to adapt to a life that had been turned upside down. In those moments by her grave, Dennis found himself articulating emotions he had struggled to express. It was as though the cemetery became a confessional, a place where he could lay bare his rawest feelings without fear of judgment. "I keep dreaming that you're going to come through that door," he continued, "that you're going to come and take me home. I wake up and everything is still the same, this place, the other kids, the space where you used to be." His voice grew softer, filled with a mixture of longing and resignation. "I wish I could just hear your voice again, just once more, to tell me everything will be okay." The contrast between the peaceful solitude of the cemetery and the chaotic noise of the orphanage was stark and jarring. Dennis's heartache seemed to pour out of him more freely in the quiet of the graveyard. His outpouring of grief and despair was intense, a cathartic release of the anguish he had been holding inside. The cemetery, once a place of sorrow, became a sanctuary where he could finally voice his deepest fears and feelings. Dennis's time at the graveyard was a rare moment of connection with his mother, a chance to feel close to her, despite her physical absence. It was a poignant reminder of the depth of his loss and the enduring love he felt for her. As he reluctantly left the cemetery to return to the orphanage, he carried with him the weight of his sorrow and the hope that one day the pain would lessen and he might find a new way to honor her memory. For Dennis, the cemetery had transformed into a sacred space where his mother's presence felt as real as it had been before her passing. In his mind's eye, he could almost see her standing before him, her warm smile and comforting laughter vivid in his imagination. He could picture how she would respond to his stories, her laughter ringing out in that way that always made him feel safe and loved. "Mom, how I miss you," he repeated to himself over and over, the phrase becoming a mantra of his grief. Each time he uttered it, it was as if he were reaching out to her, hoping that somehow his words might bridge the chasm between their worlds. In the stillness of the cemetery, Dennis poured out his anguish with unrestrained emotion. "I have nothing left here," he cried out, his voice breaking with a mix of anger and despair. "I have no one, and I'm so unhappy without you, Mom. This place, it's so cruel. The other kids are mean, and the staff don't care at all. I want to disappear, to vanish from this world. I don't want to live without you. Please take me with you. I can't bear this any longer." His cries were raw and heart-wrenching, filled with a desperation that seemed to echo through the cemetery's silence. As Dennis's sobs grew louder, he suddenly felt a gentle, reassuring touch on his shoulder. It was as though a comforting presence had descended upon him, offering solace amidst his despair. The sensation was warm and oddly soothing, so much so that Dennis momentarily questioned if he was dreaming. He turned around abruptly, his tear-streaked face meeting the gaze of a woman who radiated a serene and gentle kindness. Her smile was soft and welcoming, and there was a soothing compassion in her eyes that immediately put him at ease. "Are you okay?" she asked with a voice that was both tender and soothing. "I noticed you were crying and thought you might need some comfort. Is there anything I can do to help?" Her presence felt like a beacon of hope in Dennis's dark moment, her genuine concern palpable. Dennis, still overwhelmed by his emotions, struggled to compose himself. He tried to speak, but the words were caught in his throat, tangled with his grief and confusion. The woman, sensing his difficulty, continued gently, "I understand that it's incredibly hard right now, and it's clear that you don't want to be alone. How about this? Let me sit with you for a while. We can be together here, and maybe that will help you feel a bit less alone." The woman's offer of companionship was like a balm to Dennis's wounded heart. Her presence was a tangible reminder of kindness and human connection amidst his overwhelming sorrow. As she settled beside him on the cold, hard ground, Dennis felt a glimmer of relief, as if the weight of his sadness had momentarily been lifted. In the quiet company of this stranger, he found a fleeting comfort, a small respite from the profound loneliness that had engulfed him since his mother's death. Dennis nodded in silent agreement, his eyes reflecting a mix of relief and lingering sorrow. The woman introduced herself as Kate, sharing that she was at the cemetery to visit the grave of her son, who had passed away several years prior. Her son had been a bit older than Dennis, and Kate spoke with a soft, wistful tone that conveyed the depth of her loss. As Dennis listened to her, he felt a profound connection forming between them, bonded by their shared experiences of grief and loss. Feeling a newfound sense of trust, Dennis began to open up to Kate, revealing the struggles he faced at the orphanage. He spoke of the cruelty of the other children and the indifference of the staff, his voice trembling with the weight of his pain. "I'm so lonely," he confided, "and I don't feel like I belong anywhere anymore." Kate listened intently, her heart aching for the young boy whose life had been shattered by tragedy. She shared her own story, explaining that she had come to the cemetery not just to visit her son, but also because she had escaped from a similar setting, one of grief and heartache. Her presence at the cemetery was both a tribute to her son and a moment of personal reflection. As their conversation deepened, Kate offered to take Dennis back to the orphanage, sensing his need for kindness and stability. Although Dennis couldn't recall the exact address of the orphanage, he was able to remember the streets and landmarks he had traveled, guiding Kate as they made their way back. As they drove through the town, they passed by the park where Dennis had spent so many solitary moments. The park was adorned with festive decorations, and a carousel stood prominently in the center, its vibrant colors and twinkling lights reflecting the approaching Christmas season. Dennis's eyes lit up with a spark of wonder as he gazed at the carousel, a wistful smile touching his lips. Kate, noticing the boy's fascination, suggested with a gentle smile, "Why don't we stop for a moment? I see how much you're drawn to the carousel. It might be nice to go for a ride." Dennis hesitated for a moment, but was soon swept up in the excitement of the suggestion. They pulled over, and Dennis eagerly hopped onto one of the beautifully painted horses, his face lighting up with a genuine smile for the first time in weeks. The carousel began to spin, its cheerful music filling the air, and Dennis found himself momentarily lost in the joy of the ride. The twinkling lights and festive decorations added to the magic of the moment, making him feel as though he were floating in a dream. When the carousel came to a stop, Dennis dismounted, and as he was walking away, his foot accidentally landed on something solid. He looked down to find a leather wallet, its presence a stark contrast to the whimsical surroundings of the park. He glanced around, noting the sparse crowd, and picked up the wallet with cautious curiosity. Opening it, Dennis's eyes widened in astonishment. Inside, he discovered a stack of crumpled $100 bills, more money than he had ever seen in his young life. The sight of the cash made his heart race with a mix of disbelief and hope. The amount was substantial enough to potentially change his circumstances, offering him a chance to escape the confines of the orphanage and seek a new path. Holding the wallet tightly, Dennis felt a rush of conflicting emotions. The money represented both a lifeline and a temptation. The thought of escaping his current reality was tantalizing, but he also grappled with the ethical implications of finding such a large sum of money. He turned to Kate, his eyes wide with uncertainty. "What should I do?" he asked, his voice trembling with a blend of hope and fear. Kate, sensing the gravity of the situation, placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Let's figure this out together," she said softly. "It's important to make the right decision, and I'll help you." As they walked back to the orphanage, Dennis couldn't help but feel that this unexpected encounter with Kate, coupled with the discovery of the wallet, might just be the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Dennis slipped the leather wallet back into his coat pocket, his heart pounding with the secret he carried. As he and Kate prepared to leave the park, he couldn't help but wonder about the owner of the wallet. How could someone have lost such a substantial amount of money and not come back to retrieve it? His mind raced with questions, but he kept the discovery to himself, unsure of how to proceed. As they made their way toward the park's exit, a security guard approached them, his gaze scanning the surroundings with a hint of urgency. When his eyes landed on Dennis, he immediately began to question him about any lost items. The guard's concern was palpable, and it was clear he was searching for something important. Seeing the guard's distress, Kate stepped in, her demeanor calm and reassuring. She explained that she had found the wallet and handed it over to him. The guard's relief was evident as he took possession of the wallet, and he expressed his gratitude with a smile. "Thank you so much for returning this," he said. As a token of appreciation, he handed Kate a gift card worth $200. Though it was a modest gesture, it was a kind acknowledgement of Kate's honesty and goodwill. The guard informed them that the wallet would be turned into the lost and found department, and if no one came forward to claim it, the money would be donated to charity. Dennis felt a mixture of relief and regret. The thought of the money being used for a good cause softened the blow of not being able to keep it, but he still couldn't shake the feeling of what could have been. Back at the orphanage, Dennis struggled to maintain a facade of normalcy. His mind continually drifted back to the wallet and the dreams it had ignited within him. For a brief moment, he had fantasized about escaping the orphanage with Kate, but reality soon set in. He knew that fleeing wasn't a practical solution. Instead, he had to focus on making the best of his current situation. The weeks sped by, and soon the Christmas season arrived. The orphanage was transformed with festive decorations, and a party was organized to celebrate the holiday. The excitement among the children was palpable, with toys and decorations brightening up the space. However, despite the joyous atmosphere, Dennis felt a pang of sadness. Christmas had always been a special time with his mother, and her absence felt more acute amid the festivities. One afternoon, while Dennis was helping with the party preparations, he spotted Kate. It had been a while since their last encounter at the park, and seeing her brought a rush of memories. Driven by gratitude, Dennis approached her. "Hi, Kate," he said hesitantly. "I just wanted to thank you again for everything you did for me." Kate smiled warmly, her eyes reflecting genuine care. "It's my pleasure, Dennis. I've been following how you're doing, and I want you to know that things will get better. Life has a way of bringing unexpected turns, and I believe that brighter days are ahead for you." Her words were a beacon of hope amidst Dennis's lingering sadness. Though the holidays were still bittersweet, the kindness and support from Kate provided a glimmer of optimism. Dennis felt a renewed sense of determination to navigate through his challenges, holding on to the belief that, even in the darkest moments, there was a possibility for change and growth. Kate handed Dennis a small, neatly wrapped gift, her eyes filled with warmth. "I wanted to give you something special," she said softly. The wrapping paper was adorned with festive designs, and Dennis's curiosity was piqued. As he unwrapped the gift, he discovered a book titled The Brave Boy's Journey. The cover depicted a courageous young protagonist navigating through trials and tribulations to find joy and fulfillment. Inside the book, Dennis found a handwritten note from Kate. Her message was heartfelt and encouraging. "Dear Dennis, I hope this book inspires you as much as it has inspired me. Life is full of challenges, but remember, you have the strength to overcome them. Keep your spirit high, never lose hope, and believe in the brighter days ahead. With warmth and hope, Kate." As Dennis delved into the pages of The Brave Boy's Journey, he found himself captivated by the story of a young boy who faced numerous obstacles yet emerged victorious through perseverance and courage. The boy's journey was a mirror of Dennis's struggles, and as he read, he felt a profound connection to the character's resilience. The story's message resonated deeply with Dennis. Despite the darkness that had overshadowed his life, the loss of his mother, the harsh realities of the orphanage, and the loneliness he often felt, he began to see a glimmer of hope. The book reminded him that while his current circumstances were far from ideal, he still possessed the inner strength to confront and overcome his difficulties. The kindness and support from Kate, coupled with the lessons from the book, ignited a spark of hope within Dennis. He realized that his life, though altered in ways he hadn't anticipated, still held the potential for meaning and happiness. The memory of his mother's love and Kate's compassionate gesture became a source of comfort and strength. As Dennis closed the book, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The words of the protagonist, the encouragement from Kate, and the cherished memories of his mother coalesced into a powerful reminder that even amidst adversity, there was still a path forward. He understood that life's trials could be met with resilience and hope, and this newfound perspective gave him the courage to face each day with renewed optimism. As we wrap up this deeply moving story, we hope you found inspiration and strength in Dennis's journey. From the unexpected kindness of a stranger to the timeless wisdom shared through a heartfelt book, Dennis's experience teaches us that even in the darkest of times, hope and resilience can guide us toward a brighter future. We'd love to hear from you about what resonated with you the most in this story. What have you learned that you can apply to your own life? Please share one lesson or insight you've gained and how you plan to bring it into practice in the comments below. If this video touched you or provided you with valuable insights, we encourage you to leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue sharing these powerful stories. Thank you for being a part of our community.